deal with these people. There has to be a balance, and that's part of what this $200 billion program is about, creating a vehicle so that people that can't afford the mortgages they're in right now will be able to have either keep at the same level before they adjust again, or to be able to come up with more attractive means to keep them out of foreclosure. So there is hope. There's a lot of programs that are out, and this is just the beginning. I mean, really, President-elect Obama understands that if we don't get this economy turned around in very, very short order, he's going to have a heck of a road that he's going to have to be able to, a road of hope, because this is the #1 problem. If we don't get this solved, nothing else matters right now, because we have trillions of dollars that have been lost in 401k plans, and we have people saying, look, I'm getting ready to retire. What am I going to do? Those are the people that are pressuring him. I need to know now. I can't afford to wait 5 years, 7, 8 years from now for this to turn around. I need you to do something right away. That's why I elected you. Make it happen. So there's a lot of pressure for him to perform, and I think he's going to come through. I think that it's helpful that we don't have a complete majority, super majority of the Democrats, so that they have to work with the Republicans. Bipartisan politics will keep things, I think, in order. And I think that overall, as pessimistic as I was initially about what could happen to the market if we had all Democratic Congress, Senate, and presidency, I think that if he defers tax increases until 2010, that's going to be a step in the right direction, where the market's going to say, he understands. This is part of the stimulus. We're going to be able to keep corporations to have a little bit more money, individuals to have a little bit more money to spur the economy on and to be able to reinvest. And then in 2010, then he can slowly implement those tax changes that he's talking about, because we have a $1 trillion deficit that's rolling over to 2009. And right now, if you look at all the programs that President-elect Obama was talking about possibly doing, in a best case scenario, he has about 20% of the revenue to fund those programs. And that was before we got into $850 billion and another $800 billion for these rescue packages. So he's going to be inclined to do what's best to be able to keep money in the economy. Any questions? All right, I want to hear your take on what's going on in the real estate market here.
Oh. Well, we started early. We started in August of '05 and didn't really feel it till October of '05, but Sacramento led the downturn. And so now we're leading out of it.
Good.
So our inventory is very healthy. It's a 3 to 6 month inventory. Is that right, Tony? So that's really a balanced inventory.
That's terrific.
The problem is that 60 to 70% of the homes selling right now are bank owned. And the bank asset managers, sorry guys, I don't know how you're related to them at all, but they don't know what they're doing. They just don't know what they're doing. And so they're fouling up the transactions. But basically the inventory is clearing, and we kind of think, at least in Sacramento, that it's on about the same track that you're putting the stock market. We think by the end of the second quarter of '09, we will stabilize here, and we'll have more equity properties as opposed to bank-owned properties selling again. And one reason the median is so low is because things are selling in the real low range, and that pulls down the median as compared to not every house in every neighborhood has appreciated that much.
Okay, that's good news.
And also the resets. 80% of the resets of the adjustable rate mortgages will have occurred by the end of this year. Leaves 10% in '09 and 5% in 10. So that's also very good, because that means that many fewer people are going to hit a wall when their adjustable rate jumps up.
Now, have you seen any infusion of this TARP money into the banks actually being used to help anybody that's in troubled programs? Because I know that's why this additional $800 billion has been kind of assigned, because they're saying it's not working. It's not getting to the bank. It's not getting out to the consumers.
We haven't felt it yet.
Okay. All right, so that dovetails with what you know. And it just seems a shame, because that's why there's a bit of a challenge right now for really taxpayers crying foul. Is the whole reason this TARP program was approved was for troubled assets, right? In banks, get this toxic debt off, get this money clear so that we can loan money out for cars and for houses for people, and they didn't do that. They were saying no, they were taking the money in, They're saying, you know what, we want our balance sheets to look really good holding these assets. We're not loaning anything out unless you have just AAA credit. And then, I don't know, we're not sure. So all this money's going in, nothing's going out of the banks. So suddenly you have Paulson say, you know what, we're changing all the terms. There's, you know, $400 billion that hasn't been given out yet. We're no longer going to use it for troubled assets. What we're going to do is we're going to buy preferred shares of banks, and we're going to become owners of banks. Well, the day he said that, the market just tanked and said, what are you talking about? And that's where there's been a problem, because again, the congressmen, you know, congress people that were voting for this were, from their districts, were told this is going to benefit your area. More money is going to go into your banks to be able to free up credit in there, and it didn't happen. So there is a little bit of a challenge right now.
So the infusion really needs to get down to the consumer.
Has to.
Yeah.
Has to. It has to go to the businesses and it has to go to the consumer. If it doesn't happen, nothing changes. The bank balance sheets look better. Doesn't mean that there's any change in the economy. So it's very, very important. So part of the logic for Paulson is that if they become part of an owner of a bank, they're going to be able to influence what they're doing. The challenge is it takes a long time to influence as an owner that way versus saying, here's $5 billion, you will put that money out to buy this group of assets, sell it to the federal government. You now have $5 billion that's available to be used for loans. That's what they want to have happen. Because, I mean, look at what's happening with GM, Ford, and Chrysler right now. Now, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because they are so underwater with what they have in the way of the benefits that have been promised that they don't think they could ever pull out if there wasn't some kind of Chapter 11 reorganization, because I have a feeling it's not going to get to that. It really, the first pass of Congress kicking them out, saying, you know, $25 billion, from what we understand, to give you three $25 billion, that might cover a portion of one of your debt obligation, not all three of you. So it just allows you to go another 2 months or 3 months before you're back asking for more money. They came up with, they felt it was more like 50 to 75 billion per company is what were needed to make them viable. So what's happened is that when they meet, I believe it's next week, they're going to get a chance to talk to Congress again, and they're going to have accurate figures. Here's what our plans are, here's what we're doing. And he had, I think, the Wagner, the president of GM, was saying he was willing to work for $1, you know, for the next year based on the new program. I think that Congress will probably cut some money their way, but it's got to be under very, very strict conditions, because, you know, while they're painting a doom and gloom picture of, I think it was something like 3 to 4 million people who'd be unemployed if GM, Chrysler, and Ford went belly up. It's really only GM. GM's the only one that really right now has 3 months worth of really revenue to keep going. And it's Ford looks like they might be able to pull out of it on their own. Chrysler looks like they have enough to last them through maybe summer of next year. But again, they're saying that Chapter 11 is reorganization. That's saying, you know, here's what we can afford. We can't afford to pay that. We're going to work it out. And it comes up with a way to be able to clean up their books. And what the CEOs and presidents are saying is that it's kind of all or nothing. They're saying if we go bankrupt, it's too much and it's too late and everything's going to implode. And that's not really what would happen that way. They would just reorganize, and then the federal government would step in line and then guarantee them credit, and they'd be able to make their payrolls and do what they're doing. But I think that it probably won't get to that point. I think next week they'll probably come up with some kind of a package with very, very stringent requirements. You know, this is what the money will be used for based on operating expenses, based on not laying off people, based on you doing more green cars or, you know, fuel efficient or whatever the heck they're going to come up with. Because the Journal had, it was talking about, it was either GM or Ford that's like leading with the green car program. That's what they're going to go in next week with, saying, here's what we plan on doing. We're going to use the money for this smaller car program. It's going to be more economical. You've got GM that's really pushing the Volt. That's that electric car that's going to be 100% off the fuel, the oil demand. So it's really has a lot of positive appeal, but it's something that it's very expensive to implement, and the cars will be expensive. I think they said that, you know, for a compact car, I think entry level is going to be like $30,000 for the Volt, which, you know, with what Priuses are going for right now, actually isn't too bad. Priuses are being sold for premium, but